Hello and welcome back to a Christmas special episode of Henry Weston's Old Mate the podcast. I've got a bit of a podcast legend. He's a returning guest for the third time. I've got Phill Knott with me. We're going to talk a bit of everything. We're going to talk about Phil's time chefing. We're going to talk about Christmas. We're going to see if he's finished that Noah's Ark project of the ongoing rebuild at his house. We're going to talk a bit about the Timeline Skulls community. And we're going to see just what Phil will be cooking up for us all to admire on his Twitter feed come the 25th of December. Before we get over and hear from Phil again, just like, rate and review us. This is a fun episode. We're not worried about getting the numbers up. This is just spreading a bit of Christmas cheer. And on that note, one of the most cheerful people on the internet. Phil, how are you doing again, my friend?
Very well, thank you. Just manic getting Christmas. It's just been just manic. It's full on. Everyone wants me to get to them to get their bits done for Christmas, and yeah, it's just anyway. I'm not going to try and bore you with all of that stuff, but yeah, I'm looking forward to a little bit of time off. If I'm honest.
Good for you, mate. And people are wanting you to come and do jobs, and then you've got me dropping in your messages saying, "Shall we do something?" And this is going to go out as a video. We don't do too many videos, but Phil's got his t-shirt on. I've got my hat on. If you're wondering why it looks like I'm in a busy pub, it's because due to the time that we're recording, my wife and daughter are about. The office is full of Christmas crap. So I am currently in our bedroom, but the background wouldn't have been inappropriate. It's just cupboard. So I thought I'd come up, and this is what I put into UK pub, and this is the best it came up with on Zoom. Phil, we've chatted numerous times about. We got to know you in episode one. You told us some wonderful stories about your. You sort of introduced us to your time in the kitchen, but we heard more about your time traveling around the country, basically working festivals, installing the portaloos and everything that went in and around that. And then the second episode we had you on, we just had a bit of a catch up. We talked a little bit about Timeline Skulls community, and we just heard a bit more from you. With Christmas coming up, we know we all like our food, but you, a man who has spent half or some of his career working hospitality, food and beverage, however you want to refer to it as. Just remind us, Phil, how you got into the chefing, stroke food and beverage, stroke hospitality industry in the first place.
Well, I couldn't probably tell you the year because it was quite some time ago, but I spent around 13, 14 years in the restaurant trade, as in we were running a wedding venue. The same owners owned a pub down the road. Well, in fact, they owned two pubs, and I sort of got dotted around between the wedding venue and the two pubs later on in my career when got a little bit more experience. But it all basically started off was mum and dad used to use this particular restaurant to go out maybe once a fortnight on a Friday. My brother, he wasn't sort of into going out as much, and I used to sort of basically tag along with him. I was a youngster, didn't have no ties, obviously didn't have no kids and a missus and all that at that point. And I just got to know the owners of this particular restaurant, and I was sort of got a little bit bored some nights, and I would just go out in the kitchen and I'd help them wash up. Started off basically pot washing and being a kitchen porter. And then the head chef back then was a lady called Lizzie. She unfortunately passed away quite a few years ago from a freak accident. But yeah, she said, "You fancy coming in next weekend? We got a wedding on, and I could do with someone doing a bit of fetching and carol." I said, "Yeah, no problem." And basically, it just sort of stepped up right from there. I was thrown in at the deep end, sort of a few months in after that, preparing for sort of Christmas meals. Um, they were doing anything from sort of 100 up to 750 on a weekend in one sitting. Sort of starter main and profiteroles and Christmas pudding by the bucket load. And yeah, was carving turkeys, I was roasting potatoes, sort of 18 hours a day, because we were always prepping for the
Yeah.
next days, like beforehand. You couldn't do everything from scratch on the morning because it was just physically impossible. But it was, I really enjoyed it, and I had some really sort of good cracks throughout my sort of 13, 14 year stint with them.
You're gonna tell us some stories about your time in the industry, but just before we get into that, Phil, I probably said it on the last podcast. I worked in the kitchens when I was 16 to 18, just earning a bit of money, and I did consider whether it was something I wanted to do for a career. Then got a job with P&O on the ferries as a hotel services trainee, and it took me 6 weeks to realise it's not what I wanted to do. But then when I went to university later in life, age 28, I was Wolverhampton University, but lived in Walsall and got a little job in the kitchens at the football ground, which ran two 350 seater rooms come Christmas.
Yeah,
And obviously, there was a lot of work going Christmas. It was basically unlimited hours. So if I never see another boil in the bag lamb shank again in my life, and that was 2011 was the last Christmas I worked. So that's some time ago, and I still can't eat lamb shank. But I don't know exactly what you went through, but I did work 3 Christmases serving 700 people per night. And I mean, my job was prepping lamb. Well, I'd go in the morning and I'd prep the desserts, a bit of coulis, wallop the whatever it was on in the
yeah,
walk-in. Then I'd prep, then I'd prep potatoes, then I'd prep starters, and then my job on the line was lamb shanks and gravy. So I used to get burnt to smithereens. But enough about me, Phil. Christmas. Well, have firstly, you're going to tell it. Well, you're going to tell us some stories, but anything. I mean, I know it's part of the job, and people, the job I do in greenkeeping, it's not great at this time of year, but people will turn around and say, it's you get the good summers, you have to put up with the winters. I guess people who work hospitality, the problem with it is, Phil, your job is to be at work when everyone else is out enjoying themselves. How did you cope with that side of things over that 13 or 14-year career? Because that's a hell of a long time to be, or your days off might be Monday and Tuesday, for example, when all your mates are back to work.
yeah.
It's a different way of your life's a bit upside down, is it?
Well, in the beginning, I was labouring for the old man on the building. In the building, we were doing extensions and work. So, Monday to Friday, I started off working for him in the daytime, and then if they needed me Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I was basically doing. I mean, I was young and fit then, didn't give a shit, didn't have no ties. I had bags of money. I was buying BMWs and brand new Mini Coopers when I had an abundance of money, and it was brilliant. But yeah, it did get a bit to that towards the end. I mean, fortunate enough, I met Trudy, my partner, and that was sort of when my weekends chefing basically come to an end because you couldn't do it. You couldn't. She'd say, "Oh, what you do? Oh, I've got to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, I'll see you in the week then." And you're like, oh, you can't be doing this. This isn't any good.
Mm.
Um, so I sort of took a back seat and told them I was going back on the building, and I haven't looked back since. I do miss it, and hence why I like doing a bit at home. It's up to sort of no standard that I was doing all of those years ago. I mean, I was sort of I was a la carte at some points in the restaurant, doing some like real nice fancy stuff, and that's sort of the bit that I miss. I mean, the the grinder doing the Christmas stuff was just like carving sort of 75 turkey breasts and traying up pigs in blankets and stuffing balls, and it was just got a little bit sort of relentless. And I enjoyed it when they said the restaurant's open, because then I'd be chucked in there, leave the other boys to go down the bottom and do the Christmas stuff, and then I managed to do some nice stuff in the restaurant. Which yeah, that's why I enjoy it so much. Like I say, when I do it at home.
And that team element, that being, I guess, to be in most forms of work in the professional world, if you're not working on your own, that you have to have that sort of cohesive team, a happy team is a successful team, some might say. But the crack in the kitchen, because it's such a warm, fast, stressful environment. I guess that means, I guess the downtime can be quite similar. There's a lot of stories within the professional world of, addiction, something I'm all too aware of. But tell us, have you got any stories about, for want of a better word, some of the crack that goes on in the kitchen, mate?
Oh, I mean, it was probably, the list is too long, but I I remember one summer because we do a lot of hog roast.
Yeah.
So when they done a summer wedding, they'd either have a hog roast in the evening and like a 3 course in the day, whether it was barbecue, depending on how what the weather was like. I mean, we were doing sort of barbecues for sort of 300 wedding guests, and then hog roast for like 500 in the evening. And I remember one year there was a black guy called John, and I'm going to say again, unfortunately, he passed away. He had an illness,
You're
but
a dangerous man to work with,
I
Phil.
know, and it was like that, and I thought, oh no, is it going to follow me around? But he was a lovely guy to work for, but he used to like taking the piss and winding up. And being me a youngster, I used to bite and tell him to do one and all that. But we got on all right. There was never none of this like bullying in the workplace. It was all, he would laugh and joke about it at the end, and that would be it. I thought, right, enough's enough one night. So I got the job of putting the pig on the spit ready for the sort of the evening, because it would have to be cooked for sort of 7, 8, maybe 9 hours, depending on how big it was on a slow roast. And I remember one day the butcher, they sent it in gutted, but it still had the head on. So I had this pig. I was dragging it out of the cold room or over my shoulder with the head on. And they said, you got to take the head off because it wouldn't fit on the machine. So I had to butcher the sort of around the neck and the shoulders, make it all look tidy and not just like hack it off with a machete. And anyway, so I got this pig in a black bag in the cold room, um, with the eyeballs. It was that fresh. It still had the eyeballs in it. So it's what I'd done. I found a pair of sunglasses that was on the side in the kitchen, and grabbed a Hamlet from behind the bar, put it in the bag with the glasses and the cigar, went outside and put it on the front seat of his Transit, because he had like a Transit minibus as a work vehicle. Of course, he's come out of there late at night when we finished, about 11, half 11. Probably had a couple of glasses of something before he left. Anyway, I followed him out, jumped in my car, pretending to obviously leave to go home. And I thought, I'll just watch. Anyway, so he started up. You could see the engine was running. Anyway, with that, he's fucking jumped out of the driver's seat and run down the car park. And I just had to get out. I was pissing myself laughing. And I come over to him and he said, someone's put a fucking pig's head. I said, yeah, it was me. I said, now you just wind your neck in a bit on the old Mickey taken. And after that, we sort of got on really well, because he knew I was almost on his wavelength of a bit of being a character.
What's the key in the kitchen, Phil? Because I mentioned before that great story that, I mean, we know kitchens are hot; they've got bloody ovens in them. So, come the summer, and from sort of my limited experience, when things start to go wrong in a kitchen, they can go wrong fairly sharpish. Is it down to the individual? Is it down to the head chef? What's the key to sort of, because things inevitably go wrong in your line of work, in my line of work. Things go wrong sometimes on a daily basis. In the kitchen, when everyone is amped up and, the orders don't stop coming because Phil's spilt the peas all over the floor or someone's.
Yeah.
What's is there a trick of the trade, or is it really just down to the individual?
I mean, sometimes it was individual. I mean, we got let down by suppliers quite a lot. I mean, you get your fresh produce in delivered on that morning. And I remember having a delivery one morning which contained like this very, very special ice cream that we had ordered in. It was from some different supplier, but through another supplier. This particular wedding party requested this ice cream that they'd chosen on their dessert, and it was actually a pina colada ice cream.
Sounds horrible.
Anyway, the delivery comes in that morning, and 25 proper 5 litre tubs of ice cream not on the order. It was placed, so the supplier had let us down. Of course, I was sort of quite knowledgeable by that time. The head chef wasn't in this particular time. I don't know what had happened, whether they'd had an illness or something. Hopefully not dead, like, because didn't want to kill a third one. So my job was to make sort of 250 portions of pina colada ice cream from scratch. So, your egg yolks, boiled cream, and all your other bits, and then just trying to find wherever you could mash chill this anglaise to get it in the ice cream machine and then to get into the freezer. So that was my job from that morning. And through obviously no person's fault, only from the supplier, but it was something that we had to get over, because you couldn't have gone out there and said, well, that ice cream that you specifically ordered, we haven't got, because it wouldn't have looked good. And as luck would have it, when it went out and it was balled on the plate, everything was fine, and there was no complaints. But yeah, we had a few mishaps with a few agency staff coming in pissed from the night before, and you leave them with a job. And I remember we used to have these quite deep metal trays and some severe sort of high heat hot cupboards.
Yeah.
And that's where the Christmas puddings would be steamed for the day, for the evening sitting. So of course we've left him to tray all of these Christmas puddings up, and said, look, you must put 2 inches of water in these trays, otherwise it'll just burn.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've left him down in the bottom prep kitchen, traying all these Christmas puddings up and foiling them up and putting them in the hot cupboards. Anyway, it gets to about sort of 4 o'clock, and we can smell this sort of not so good burning smell, going around checking, making sure like there's no cables on fire in the marquee. And turns out he trayed up sort of 15 or 20 of these deep trays with no water in. Of course, we peeled all the foil back. The Christmas puddings in the plastic molds had just melted to the bottom of the thing, and they were all like lumps of fucking charcoal. You couldn't have done nothing with them. So luckily we had surplus stock that we always used to keep back. So it was a quick sort of blasting fucking pots of boiling water on the stove to get them up to heat, so we could slice these Christmas puddings and anglaise them and out the door without anybody knowing. But yeah, it was, we did have a lot of trouble with agency. That was, you got some good ones, and then you'd get ones that where the good ones had gone, they were still charging chef rates and sending some like idiot that didn't even know how to hold a knife the right way around. It was one of them, and it cost you time. You'd end up having to go and show them, and that's what not it's all about. I mean, your time was precious. I mean, we were doing 16, 17, 18-hour days at some points over Christmas, because it was just so full on. You wouldn't have been able to have enough hours the following day if you didn't sort of prep the night before. But yeah, it was, we didn't have nothing. We didn't have, touch wood, no food poisonings. We didn't have none of this. No allergic reactions. I mean, because back then that was when it all sort of started coming new on the scene. We knew about nuts and the wheat and things, but then there was all these other things like people allergic to strawberries, people allergic to tomatoes. Of course, you'd have to go and prep right away out of the way. But then it got ridiculous, and there was customers saying, "Oh, I'm allergic to fucking fresh air" by the end of it, and you think, oh, just go away. But yeah,
Not quite like people being allergic to triple hazy.
no.
From the mad, hectic world of chefing to something maybe not quite as hectic, and something we learned about in the second podcast we did, Phil, a sort of a passion or a pastime of yours, beating. And when I say beating, I mean beating the ground to flush the birds. We heard about your time. I guess it's more volunteering on the beating stuff, and you've got a beat coming up, Phil. It's the Christmas beat, I guess, is it? And what will you be flushing this time of year?
Yeah, so it is predominantly pheasant on this particular state where I go. They've got a lot of partridge, French and English on there. There's quite a few duck. So that's what it is. They sort of have a nice mixture. We do sort of particular drives where they want a good sort of partridge covey come over. We know how to sort of work the ground and get those partridge up. Sometimes they're not there, which they're a bird. They can go off and wander wherever they like. But the gamekeeper sort of tends to go around early hours in the morning just to sort of have a drive around and see what's hanging about and where. But it is mostly sort of pheasant. I think they put down about 12,000 pheasant this year.
Wow.
Quite a few hundred partridge and things. But yeah, I'll just love it. It's sort of my get away from work time because I talk to different people. We have different conversations, of course, and they're just a great crowd. And I've known them probably 12 or 13 years because I've been going to the same estate. So yeah, it's really nice.
So will you'll be obviously participating, flushing rather than shooting, but will there be a social element afterwards?
Yeah, so we'll have a couple of beers afterwards in the beaters hut that we call it. So we normally have on average sort of 20 to 24 beaters for the day. And if I do a certain amount of beats, I then get a proper pegged day shoot out of it as well. So, I'm looking at a 8 to a grand day on the house basically, which that's why I do it because I mean there's no way that I could be going chucking grounds on pheasant days out and things. So I look forward to my beaters day where sort of we have 8 to 10 guns go out, and it's such a great crack. Yeah.
Truly living up to the moniker of Sir Phill Knott on that occasion.
Well,
Uh,
this yeah.
I think I listened back to our second chat the other day, Phil, and I think it'd be good to because we're on a bit of a schedule here, so I don't want to rush through too much, but I think it'd be good to sort of catch people up on where you're at, and anyone who follows your timeline will know. Certainly, you moved in, and from the last episode, you'd moved into a new property, and it was all guns blazing. I think I referred to it as a bit of a Noah's Ark project. And I know me and you have talked about your sort of. I probably did it a misjustice, an injustice, and called it a shed, but you've erected a wonderful wooden building out the back. But how is it's not the new house anymore, but how are all the projects going? I know you post more in the summer, or you posted more in the summer when there was a hell of a lot going on, and you always seem to be about, once you'd done the kids on the Saturday morning, it was then on to the house in the Saturday afternoon, and then Sundays tended to be a sort of a DIY on your own home day.
Yeah.
How's that all going, mate?
Well, so is what we done. So we moved in 18 months ago, and our aim was to get the house livable last Christmas. So that's what we done. I mean, there's one room in the house where I'm going to do the knock through to do the extension. I mean, I'll put the extension on hold. I'll just run out of time this year, and it's one of those. I know what the ground is. If I leave it too long before I get the concrete foundation poured, I'm going to be in a little bit of a pickle.
Yeah.
So with the weather's always up against me. So what I need to do is sort of wait till sort of late spring, get the footing in and poured, and get the shell up with the roof on and the windows in, and then I'm watertight. Then I can sort of do the internals, get the plasterer in, get the electrics done, and fit the kitchen and all that. But I'll be in the dry because we've got sort of 2 or 3 projects to do on the house: a front porch and a side garage. So it's not going to stop there. I've since then sort of done the utility room out the side, so we've got all our sort of washer tumble and everything out there. I've done the shed because we needed it, so I took 2 others down that we were using for storage. So I haven't not stopped, and then it got to a point where I was working then every Saturday and Sunday, and I just said to her, it's getting a bit relentless now. She said, well, I don't want you to be doing it all the time. We're comfortable inside. We can live like we are. It's no trouble. We'll just put it on hold. And this is when we sort of decided to do weekends with the kids more and have a bit of us time, because we're not going to move. We're going to stay. Well, not going to move. We're going to stay for quite a while, so I can get all of the work done. But yeah, it's not all about that all the time. You do need a bit of a switch off
Well,
from it.
sometimes, like the decision that you've obviously made to put the project on hold, sometimes you just have to. And like you say, I mean, I've got an 8.5-year-old, and she's growing up quick, and I made a conscious decision this year to work less weekends, and a weekend shift in my job is 4:30 a.m. till 8 a.m. Go in, mow the greens, set the golf course up. I mean, I'm home half the time before the girls are up, but it leaves me a little bit knackered for the rest of the day. And I was doing every second, every third weekend, and although I was present, my body was at home. I wasn't present mentally as such.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I made a conscious effort that, we've got one child. I'm the age I'm at now. We're very unlikely to have any more kids. So our daughter is going to grow up quick, and you don't want to look back and think, crikey, I missed those years because I was worrying myself silly about the extension. But it's
Yeah,
great to hear that and I'm not surprised to hear that you've got 3 projects already lined up, mate.
yeah. Well, not on my. It's her indoors. It's like, I want the extension done and the porch and the garage. I said, well, yeah, I'll try my hardest.
I
But
do, I do miss some of your Friday night videos with a bit of washing up with the whites or the colours hanging in the background, mate. They used to be some of
yeah,
the ones.
well, yeah, that's what it's all about. But it's yeah, it was just getting, I mean, and then come the winter, you're dark by sort of 3, 4 o'clock anyway. And then we just both decided we'd just put it on hold. We're comfortable in here now. We're warm and toasty and dry. We're clean. We got no dust. Um, and then I can do the other projects in stages. So we know that the bus through into the new extension on the back is going to be of upheaval in the room we're using as a temporary kitchen. But after that, everything's external and it won't affect the inside. So you've got to sort of plan that way. You can't just go and knock walls out left, right, and centre and then worry about it. You have to sort of make a plan of attack on it.
But that's probably why you're a builder, or why you do what you do, Phil, and I don't. Because I do it all wrong. I just mentioned, your Friday videos, and to the Timeline Skulls community is how me and you got to meet each other. I'm the nearly 7 years sober recovering alcoholic who takes quite great interest in you guys who uh, you have this wonderful community where you all, it's not really about the beer. The beer is in heavy involvement, but there's a wonderful community that's been around for a lot of years now, and you're a good part of it, Phil. And one of the first people I met through, along with Craig. And I think I originally tried to line up, or I did line up a few secret sort of videos that I then posted to Craig when me and him had our first chat. Um, I don't want to talk too much about TLS itself, and there's some good crack flying around on the mentions and the Twitter. But I did want to, I wanted to ask you about anything on the beer front, because although I don't drink anymore, and I don't really have, I was a cider drinker, and I noticed that Bristol Ci
Oh,
sent you a wonderful, something that would have been right up my alley back in the day. Some wonderful Thatcher's gift set, really. I've got a middle brother in Germany who would probably, we've had two deaths on this podcast. He'd probably kill a few more people, Phil, to get some of Bristol size special Thatchers. But anything, what's really tickled your fancy? That side are a bit of a highlight. Anything else that's have you happened upon anything else good this year?
well, as you probably are full aware, I don't sort of turn down too much what I drink. But I have since invested in the new Perfect Draft machine,
Good.
which had a sort of quite a good variety of nice beers, and there is a difference when you pour in it. I know it's not going to the pub and having a crack with your mates and all of that lot, because no feeling can beat that, not really. But to have the beers that they've got sort of on their product list is very good. I mean, I don't, as you know, I don't normally drink in the week. But I've got
Good for you.
I've got a Hawkstone, which is on the draft, which is the old Jeremy Clarkson,
Jeremy Jezza.
and it's very very nice. But yeah, with getting back to the ciders, I pointed it out to Simon. Oh, he's like a lifelong member of the Thatcher's pub down where he lives. And he didn't spot it until I sent him a picture. He said, "Oh, where's that?" I said, "Well, it looks like it's a new Thatcher's." I
Yeah.
said, "I'll tell you what, as you're in and out of the shop every other weekend, bo- box me up a handful. I'll send you the money, postman to him, because I'd like to try them." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I don't know when I'm going next." He said, "But leave it with me." Anyway, I come home from work one day, and there was this massive crate not written on. I didn't
Yeah.
know what was in it. Anyway, he sent me a message. He said, "I got you something for as a little early Christmas present." And I was like, "Well, you shouldn't have, because that was very naughty of you."
Yeah.
Anyway, when I'd done the video of the unveiling of the box, I was made up, because he went out of his way, and it must have cost him a tidy sum, because the 24 bottles, if you said they were sort of 2.5, £3 each, it's a lot of money. And but the red, I can't remember, red streak or something it's called, the red one, the 8.4 is probably the best one that they've ever produced for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's an 8.4, and you could be drinking a 4.5, 5% until you have a couple of them, and then you go a little bit bandy legged.
It'll be giddy.
And then you know it's strong. But even the 6%, you wouldn't even know you were drinking the 6% either.
I used to find, maybe it's because I drank a hell of a lot of it, but obviously this podcast is Henry Weston's old mate because it was my old mate. But that 8.2 or 8.4 special vintage, um, yeah, it just had that taste. It wasn't like sipping a Friday night special from the Bossmans. And the community though, Phil. I mean, I haven't followed any new accounts recently. Well, I am following Rob the Builder now and I'm enjoying his content, if content's the right word. Very funny guy. But you still enjoy seeing yourself, still enjoy seeing Bristol Side pop on when he puts his bets on and when he seems to have a few sort of afternoons to himself. And when he gets on the red wine, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah,
Obviously, I've been doing a bit with Jason and Rob T for the football. Azza and Nickers, we're trying to line something up with them, but it's good. How is from someone who still posts regularly on a Friday, how's the community for you, mate? It's kind of, I get the impression it's a fairly steady community that's ticking along. It's just everyone's just seems to still be enjoying each other's company via Twitter or social media.
yeah. I mean, it's there's the regulars. I mean the regulars. That's what is basically on there pretty much all of the time. And you got like your Sam Brasher, who I sent something to in the post. I mean, he was over the moon. Um,
Has he been? Has he? Did he have some time away, or did he get chucked off?
oh, well, I'm not too sure. I know that he was off.
Yeah.
Um, they were doing sort of funny shifts on his work, I believe. He was
Right.
doing a lot of nights and weekends and things, and then he just went off. But I think he's currently doing a calendar. I think it's the Brewdog calendar.
I wasn't suggesting he'd gone to prison. If anyone thought
So he's on to what day is it now? So he's on to his well, it's the 12 days of Christmas, I think. So yeah, he's ploughed through a few already. But yeah, I mean, I I'm in contact on WhatsApp with a couple of them, and yeah, it's just really nice, really nice, and it even looks like there's been a bit of a romance blossomed with the Kentish lady who is on a few times, and uh,
yes,
she's met up with Jason, who he's also sort of on sort of quite often.
yes.
Yeah, there's a new relationship stemmed from a bunch of alcoholic loudmouths on a Friday and Saturday night. But yeah, it's brilliant.
I need to get in touch with him because obviously I have a WhatsApp group with Jason and Rob regarding some of the football chats we do. And yeah, Jason's been a hard man to nail down, and obviously he's had a few issues away from the timeline. But yes, it was good to see that he's getting back in the groove, maybe should we say?
Well, yeah, if you can pardon the pun and all of that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it looks like they seem to be getting on really well, and it's great. And that's what that sort of the thing about timeline. I mean, a little while ago, they had a bit of grief with a load of. It was probably bots, a lot of it, but then there was a lot of dickheads on there winding people up, and a couple of people thought, "Oh, I'll blow this on. I ain't going to come on Twitter no more if I'm going to do that." But that sort of fizzled out, and they had a few sort of messages from a couple of the regulars to say, turn it in,
Yeah.
fling you up almost. But yeah, it's just a great crowd, and everybody on there, you could not go out and have a pint with and the crack.
I
Yeah,
see Wayne reactivated again the other day. I don't know if he hung around for a while. I think he'd restricted himself, so I didn't see any content, but I did see that the landlord had tagged him in something. So
yeah. Wayne come back. He was another one. He had a lot of, I think, a lot of DM messages. Were like, "Oh, what are you doing, messing about in a particular outfit?" Because he dresses up in his Indiana Jones, and I mean he's been Father Christmas a couple of times already. But if that's what he wants to do, he makes people laugh. I've had a couple of people message me saying, "Please get Wayne to add me." He said he's gone private. Can ask him to accept my friend request. So I've sort of messaged Wayne on my thing, and he's added them. So there are a lot of people that sort of missed him when he went off. But if you don't like what he does, then don't watch him. That's the end of.
social media, you can always click unfollow. You don't
Yeah,
have to press play. And
yeah,
like you alluded to, Phil, there will always be dickheads on social media.
yeah.
The good thing about the Timeline Skulls community and a lot of other communities that I'm involved in is there's not too many. I think it would be right to mention, and you sometimes have the T-shirt on, and he's not a Timeline Sculler as such, but Ronnie the Rhino. Um, I love, yeah, his dad. I assume his dad posting, but it's great to see somebody of such a young age dedicating themselves. Obviously, he's a school kid. He's got school to worry about, but he seems to be dedicating himself to that physical training element. And anyone who doesn't know Ronnie the Rhino, young Ronnie. In his boxing journey, I guess. But and I know you've supported him and his dad along the way, or showed support, Phil. And it's great to see. Because we're running sort of up to the time limit, and I've got to go and put my little one, shove her in the shower, Phil. Christmas Day, will you be, well, firstly, will you be chefing? And secondly, will you be serving up something traditional, or will you be putting a Mr. Knott spin on things?
Well, actually, this year we are going out to a restaurant.
Nice.
So I'm going to have a break from it just for the one day, because then the other days I will be cooking for the family, or we may have people round. And I thought, do you know what, this year I'm going to have a bit of just, I'm going to sit down, have a load of beer, and then someone can serve me. The missus is going to drive home, and I'm going to have a lovely day. Not that I wouldn't anyway, but it's different when you do it at home. It's the different thing is I enjoy doing it, but I
Yes.
thought, yeah, I'm just going to have a break from it. I'll probably cook the next 5 years. Who knows? We might
Yeah.
decide about again, but um, we've got quite a bit of stuff planned with the kids over Christmas, because we don't tend to do sort of 2 and 3 week holidays. We tend to go and do sort of days out or a weekend away or something as our breaks away. So yeah, this year going to have a change. But I have ordered turkey and ham and things to have at home, so I will be cooking up over the Christmas period.
And looking, we don't want to wish time away, Phil, but looking forward to 2025. Is the work diary and the social diary looking sort of fully booked and filled with plenty of things to look forward to, mate?
Yeah, so it's the guy I'm working for at the moment, which I'm sort of taking more of a not a full time employed, because I am self employed, obviously, but he wants me on board a bit more, because I've been being left on sort of large jobs. We've just started a large job last week, so I'll be my job will be the foundations, the drainage, getting it up to sort of block and beam or whatever they're having on the oversight. And we get the brickies in, just sort of basically like running the job, but having a bit of knowledge with it too. And he's got sort of 4 or 5 large ones in the pipeline. So I'm sort of made up really. I've got an option of going and away for a couple of days doing my regular customers. So I've got the best of both worlds. I can go and work for him. So not being funny, I'm going to touch loads of wood.
I'll touch
But
some as well.
I don't think I'll be shy of work next year. I mean, I've got this place to fund, which is like a bottomless pit once you get started. As I know from
That's just the children.
well, yeah, this is it. I mean, it's like a 800 quid a month Morrison's bill, and and then you go to the fridge and like there's sort of you get a puff of cold air come out. So that's all that's left in there.
How
But
many children have you got? Two or three, Phil?
free.
Oh, crikey,
But
yeah.
they're all getting bigger now, and they're all eating bloke-sized dinners. I mean, we go out and have a meal. I mean, they're not having like a little bit. So we went out Saturday, and the eldest main course tray of tandoori lamb chops, and then the little one king prawn butterfly. So yeah, there's best part of a tenner just on the starter, and you're like, I can't moan because they're not asking for like chips and all the crap, which we try and sway away. So if we go out for a meal, we try and get them to have what we're having, and it's working. So I can't really complain.
Good stuff. Well, I think on that wonderful little note, I say, Phil, well, thank you for giving me some of your much sort of sought after time. Thank you for
Do an
coming.
invoice.
Yeah, yeah, it's all right. Send it to the golf club. But I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas to all those who tune in and have a look at me and Phil having a natter. We will get together, I'm sure, again in 2025. Phil, thank you for being a wonderful guest. Merry Christmas to you and the family, and we will catch you again in the near future. Cheers, Phil.
No trouble.